Okay, starting up halfway through turn 5, looks like. The Ottomans opened things up with Untimely Death card, killing off the Duke of Alva, who's up here with this big stack, sitting at Mons, actually. This can all be here now. And then the Spanish played the Spanish Road card, which gave them an extra strength point in Milan, and then the right to do a redeployment, which they took all the way. Maybe they'll follow up by taking that in favor. You can slide through this. They can go through one pass, this one here, up to here, and put them here at Vienna, in a position to siege Vienna. That maintains the agreement that they made with the Germans. It's not necessarily pleasing to the Germans. The Ottomans are sitting here significantly weakened without the ability to slide up here. And really, perhaps the Spaniards will discuss this with the Germans before they move up there. Do the Germans want the help? No, they're fine with the Spanish not helping them and positioning themselves here as I first wanted to go. The Spaniards would rather be here, but they could have provided a lot of support towards whacking into the Turks. Right now, though, the advantage is to the Germans. They might be able to take Vienna on their own, and they would rather not have to try to bargain to get it back from Spain, which would just be an annoyance. And Spain doesn't really want to be holding it, so it would certainly have to be bargained back. We'll see how that all ends up. But they have the advantage in troops right now. England did a quick end run out of Dunkirk up to Rotterdam, grabbing that instead, leaving a troop back in Dunkirk in order to make Maurice think twice about just grabbing it. That doesn't look like a good avenue for them. They played the handguns card in order to affect this, and they were thinking about trying to shoot Maurice. If they killed Maurice, that would be potent. But then they decided, let him fight the Spaniards. We're going to go up here and deal with William. We outnumber him. Maybe we can get Amsterdam instead, which he's sieging right now with almost no troops. Anyway, that's a dangerous position for William up there. I don't know why I moved him into there. Probably thought he had more troops. But Duke of Parma can probably handle Maurice fairly well. He's better matched than the English are. And what the French did was played the Enterprise of England. And this is kind of like the Dutch Revolts. One of these tricky little cards. These are victory point cards, essentially. What this thing does, it's a mandatory event. You count up how much Catholic influence there is in England. And if there's sufficient, the Spanish get victory points. If there's insufficient, the English get them. And in fact, there's so little that the Spanish actually lost one. So these are marked here with these little markers. Spain loses one. England gains one. And that's reflected over there. But why it's kind of wanky in my view is you don't know how many of these are going to come out. And I guess that's not too terrible. It's just, it's hard to plan what you're supposed to do. It's kind of like you have to have some sort of success in the Netherlands and or in England in order to score these suckers. But you can get guaranteed scores elsewhere, maybe by grabbing keys or something like that. So it's kind of hard to judge how valuable it is to pursue these things. They come into the deck later. In fact, this one came in on turn 4. It may not score too many times. It may not be too devastating to you to just ignore it. So it's kind of one of those balancing acts you have to take. If it comes up every turn, for 4, 5, 6, 7, 4 turns, that can be a very painful swing in points if you leave it alone. And that could affect everyone. If England's gaining points, that's perhaps making them the leader in a way that, say, you'd expect France to be gathering points every turn off Paris if they hold it. I don't know how I feel about those cards, to tell you the truth. The Netherlands has one as well with the Dutch revolts, which we saw, and we saw that they created points as well. All right, well, let's finish up with the back end of the powers. The Germans position themselves for a siege. William successfully takes Amsterdam, taking that away from the Spanish. Wow, they're behind a lot of keys, and we can see the victory point situation. Spain's just lagging here while the Dutch are screaming ahead. Remember, 25 is automatic victory. Now, that's a long way away, but if there's a Protestant revolt in France, that could actually swing quite a bit of power. We can see how that works out. It's going to be tough, though. French have had a lot of time to kind of consolidate themselves. Now, what else did they use the points for? They built up a couple of garrison units just in case things go poorly. They want to make sure. So, for example, if Maurice doesn't get an interception against the Duke of Parma, that he doesn't get an easy siege there. Likewise, the English can't just take Utrecht easily, which is their capital, and that would be painful for them. All right. So the English positioned themselves to siege Utrecht and sent Cavendish out on an expedition. Worst comes to worst, he can drop back into the colony if he can't keep going, if he doesn't have enough points to finish it up. The French did some more counter-reformation, anti-unrest type activity. They've got France really in pretty good shape at this point, although there are still a few Huguenots left, scattered here and here. I don't know if they're... yeah, these are too. Convert that. Germans played an interesting card. They attacked and played this desperate assault. It means they hit on 4, 5s, and 6s, but the defender gets double the dice. Well, there was only one defender there. It gave the defender 4 dice to their 2, but they ended up winning the siege, taking that over, and you can see the effect on the points. The Turks have been driven down. Germans back up in second place now. And then the Dutch, well, Maurice made an attack on the Duke of Parma and was repulsed. And at that point, William of Orange raised some troops. I think that's about it there. Dutch are not happy with this English-Spanish unholy alliance taking place. All right, another time around, the Spanish successfully take Brussels, but they can't push on further. Got enough cards that they could do quite a bit still, probably against Maurice, but they needed like 2 attacks to do it, and it just wasn't working out well. English kind of pittered about. I don't remember quite what they did. No clue, to tell you the truth. They had a lot of points. But, I mean, I think they took the capital and drove it off the map. Now that can't come back without another Dutch revolt, which means the Dutch are without a capital this turn. They could have revolted this turn, but with their special card, but it wouldn't bring the capital back, so they used that for other purposes. The French converted some more, and they got almost everything there, and then the Protestants, of course, came back, played their zeal card, unconverted a bunch of stuff, making it Protestant again, and preparing the way for a possible revolt there. And they also got some conversions here, so we see they're reaching into areas that they hadn't been before with Protestantism. A little bit of continuation of the same. The Spanish moved into place and laid siege to Antwerp. Yeah, whatever. The English, I think, passed. I'm not sure. The French did some more peacekeeping duties and added a garrison unit. Then the Spanish were the only ones coming back with the card in the last turn. They ended up playing this treachery card, which allowed them to siege Antwerp with Maurice in there. They've captured Maurice. Basically, they roll an attack. If they have more troops at the end of the attack, they win. This allows them to keep a card at the end of the turn, and we are indeed at the end of that turn. Things look pretty harsh for the Dutch. You can see they've fallen from first all the way down to last. Losing keys is a big deal for them. They've only got one left. They get 3 points per, so that really swings things. All right, time for the maintenance and cleanup stuff. Speaking of which, I'm afraid I cheated at the beginning of this turn. The spring deployment, I think I came out of Brest-Canson and slid up into the Netherlands. That's illegal. It has to come from Milan. It couldn't come from Milan because that would cross a pass no matter how you cut it. So, well, these events would not have happened as they did. I can't go back and fix it. But just as a, it's really easy to screw that up, especially with my poor eyes not really seeing connections well on point-to-point map. Well, how about another screw-up? This one doesn't have to have had any real effect, but the English intervention in the Netherlands triggers a war with Spain. That happened as soon as it happened. I've marked it now because I didn't notice it, but England and Spain are at war now. Now, this is something England would not have wanted to have happen. They're probably going to have to come to peace with the Netherlands. In fact, after all the scientists and marriages were allocated, we see the French screaming ahead. And the Dutch are no longer that big a scare anymore. The reason the French go ahead, not just because they've been kind of on their own and can pad their victory points, but also owning Paris. It's worth 2 points per turn for them with Henry on the throne for the rest of the game. Somebody's got to do something about that. Very, very quickly, they're going to be hitting that 25 points if people don't start taking France seriously. And it may well be that the Spanish and the Dutch have to come to some sort of agreement so Spain can concentrate on the French as well. The Dutch might be convinced into something along those lines. Right now, though, 2 keys are in Spanish hands. That's painful. But that would allow the Dutch then to concentrate as well on trying to trigger revolts in France. We'll see how that goes. Speaking of all the interesting stuff, the marriage between Isabel and Rudolph didn't work out too well. Not to be too unreasonable. Rudolph probably wasn't all that into women to begin with, but they ended up getting the -1 card on each of them. In addition to Rudolph losing his bonus, which we knew was going to happen. That's one of the triggers there. That's this thing. But he gets a +1 to all patronage rolls for being married. Interesting combination, whatever. I'm not positive that the Protestant spaces points are correct. I'm not too worried about it. Right now, France is within range of the Germans. There's no chance of an automatic victory. I'll recalculate them before I start the next turn. All the royal marriages are done. Elizabeth and her victory points are gone. They got the full 5. Leicester is gone, blah, blah, blah. All right, this one's going up, and we can watch me screw up more rolls probably.